"Let's keep this short," Damon Kirk said, adjusting his overpriced haircut in the webcam. His grin stretched across the screen like a bad Botox job. "Effective immediately, your roles are being sunset. You're not being let go, you're being repositioned to the job market." And just like that, half the Zoom gallery blinked out, cameras switching off one by one like dying porch lights. "My team, my people, gone with a calendar invite and a smirk." Then he said it, the sentence that made my molars grind. "We recouped nearly half their severance." Budget optimization, folks, recouped. He used the word recouped like our livelihoods were bottle deposits at a gas station. I didn't blink, I didn't cry. I sat there in my beige cardigan and budget office chair, staring into the dead eye of my webcam while every muscle in my body turned to ice. My coworkers were texting each other, frantically checking HR emails, trying to breathe through it, but me, I was thinking about that word, recouped. That wasn't some offhand slip, that was specific, that was legally stupid. Hey, if you're still here, can I ask a quick favor? If you like stories like this, consider hitting that subscribe button and dropping a like. It seriously helps the channel and keeps this chaos going. All right, back to it. The call ended with Damon logging off first, like a drunk prom king who thought he crushed a speech but forgot to zip his fly. HR didn't even stay on to answer questions. Typical Stratwell procedure, kick the dog and shut the door. I checked my inbox. Sure enough, there it was, severance package confidential. I opened it, scanned the numbers, something was off. The base amount was right, but then came a line I hadn't seen before, executive reallocation adjustment. No explanation, no policy reference, just a 4-figure subtraction followed by a smiley face emoji in the email signature of a woman who once cried over printer toner. I forwarded it to myself, saved the PDF twice, once on my home drive, once in the cloud. Then I opened a folder I hadn't touched in years, Legacy Governance Docs. The kind of stuff you keep not because you need it, but because you know someday someone will forget you were there first. That folder was about to earn its keep. I texted Jordan, who used to sit next to me before the last reorg shoved us into siloed hell. "You get this line in your severance?" I asked. "Yep, exec adjustment. $3,500 gone. HR says it's standard now. You buy that?" He replied with a meme of a trash can on fire captioned Stratwell HR Strategy 2025. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry either. I started making copies. I don't work in compliance for 17 years and walk away empty-handed. Damon Kirk might have thought we were numbers on a spreadsheet, but I knew the formulas behind the cells, and I sure as hell remembered one clause most people forgot existed. A clause I hadn't thought about since the day I watched the founding partner, Margaret Teller, slap it on the table during a board meeting no one but 6 of us survived. Section 23.7a. I didn't remember every word, but I remembered the vibe. Executives shall not materially benefit from severance reductions unless a full board vote authorizes it. It wasn't legalese, it was insurance. Written back before IPOs and investors when founders still thought betrayal only came in hostile takeovers, not in HR memos. The thing is, people like Damon don't read charters. They skim PowerPoints. They think paperwork is someone else's problem, until it becomes their coffin. Damon didn't know that yet, but I was going to teach him, and I wouldn't raise my voice. I'd raise the evidence. 3 days after the guillotine call, a padded envelope showed up at my doorstep, Stratwell's idea of a heartfelt goodbye. Inside was my severance summary, my final paycheck breakdown, and a glossy brochure titled Next Chapters, Thriving Through Transition. The smiling woman hugging a golden retriever in front of a mountain neither of them could afford. I flipped past the platitudes and scanned the spreadsheet. There it was again, executive reallocation adjustment, $4,100, no policy code, no asterisk, just that vague line item in the same smug font they used for employee birthdays. I flipped the page, then flipped it again. No explanation. I logged into our now restricted HR portal, miraculously still active, and sure enough, under final pay statement, the same number stared back at me like it was daring me to ask questions. So I did. I called HR. Amanda picked up. She sounded like she was eating string cheese and indifference. "Hey, Brenda," she sighed. "If this is about the adjustment, we've been told it was an executive-level policy change. It's uniform." "Great," I said. "Could you send me the written policy? It hasn't been published yet, and it's not a policy." A beat of silence. Then she parried, "Well, it was an executive decision. There it was. The phrase that gets lawsuits filed and careers torched." I posted a casual note in the alumni Slack. "Quick question, anyone else see this executive reallocation deduction in their severance?" Within 15 minutes, 12 people DM'd me. $2,700, $3,900, $5,000, same label, same vagueness, same corporate shoulder shrug. Then came the messages that really mattered. Damon's bragging he saved the company $200K on severance. Said it in a meeting with legal. Someone joked he should get a cut of it. He laughed, didn't deny it. Wait, didn't he come from that failed SBX startup that got sued for misappropriation? I pulled up his LinkedIn. Sure enough, his last role was strategic revenue partner at a company that no longer existed and had 0 archived press releases. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to smell the grift on a title like that. That night, I poured a whiskey, kicked off my shoes, and opened the one place Damon wouldn't think to look, Stratwell's pre-IPO compliance archive. Buried in my personal records folder, beneath a tax form from 2012 and a scanned birthday card from my son, was the old server backup I kept just in case. Just in case someone got greedy. Just in case someone forgot. I clicked into the governance folder, then into founding docs, then opened Charter Final V4 signed PDF. My heart thumped once, twice, and then I saw it. Section 23.7. A. In the event of restructuring, no executive may personally or indirectly benefit from any modifications to severance, unless such modification is approved by unanimous vote of the board of directors and publicly disclosed. Indirectly, that word was the dagger. Because if Damon had pulled this stunt without a board vote, and based on every whisper I was hearing then he hadn't just bent a rule. He'd shattered a clause written by people who still believed in paper trails and courtroom retribution. I highlighted it, annotated it, printed 3 copies. I started a spreadsheet of my own. 1 tab for each severed employee, 1 column for what they should have received, 1 for what they got, 1 for the amount Damon recouped, and 1 for every damn time his initials appeared on an internal email forwarding those spreadsheets with the subject line "Final Revision OK." I wasn't just hunting for justice anymore. I was building a bomb made of signatures and timestamps. Because the thing about people like Damon, they don't cover their tracks. They think silence means consent. But I wasn't quiet because I was scared. I was quiet because I was planning. The next morning, I dropped my kid off at school, smiled through the mom traffic circle like I wasn't scheming corporate justice in yoga pants, then came home, poured coffee so strong it could melt chrome, and sat down with the original Stratwell Charter like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls. There it was, page 62, stamped, notarized, witnessed in triplicate. Section 23.7. A. That beautiful, overlooked piece of legal poetry written back when the founders still cared about ethics, before the company got drunk on venture capital and hired peacocks like Damon to optimize costs. No executive may personally or indirectly benefit from the modification of severance obligations without unanimous approval of the board of directors, recorded and ratified in minutes made available to shareholders. Most people skipped this stuff, buried in a binder, never updated post-IPO because governance transition got delayed indefinitely. We were still technically operating under the founding charter, even if most execs didn't know it. Hell, HR probably thought bylaws were just seasonal allergies. But I remembered. Because back when I joined, Margaret Teller, the real Margaret, woman who founded this company with a used MacBook and a warehouse full of ambition, she walked me through the clause herself. I was 28, green as a cucumber in a snowstorm, and she told me always read the fine print. That's where the ghosts hide. So now I had a ghost clause, and I needed a living witness. I reached out to her. Margaret had long since retired to Santa Fe, traded boardrooms for bird feeders. Her LinkedIn said former founder, but her bio still listed her Stratwell email. Just for kicks, I tried it. Bounced, so I did something I hadn't done in years. I picked up the phone. The landline rang 4 times before someone picked up, a faint cough. Then, "Hello, hi, this is Brenda Alvarez. I used to work at Stratwell back before the second Series B. Is this Margaret Teller?" A pause, then softly, "Well, I'll be damned. Brenda from compliance. You still keeping the wolves honest?" I laughed. I almost cried. "I'm trying," I said, "and I need your help." I laid it out for her carefully. No accusations, just facts, the severance cuts, the mysterious executive reallocation, the clause, the initials, the bragging, the silence. When I finished, she said nothing for a while. I could hear wind chimes in the background and a dog barking at a bird. Finally, she spoke. "That clause was my line in the sand," she said. "I added it after our first acquisition, because the incoming exec tried to stiff the marketing team out of their packages while giving himself a retention bonus. We got rid of him, but the board wanted it in writing, so I wrote it. Is it still enforceable? If you have the signed version and no amendments post-IPO, then it's very enforceable." "I do," I said, "and they didn't." She chuckled. "Damn girl, you got him by the ethics." She offered to send me a sworn statement verifying the intent and integrity of the clause. Said she'd even pull her own copy and FedEx it, notarized. Told me she was proud I'd kept the receipts. Before we hung up, she added one thing: "Be careful, Brenda. Men like Damon, they're arrogant until they're scared. Then they're dangerous." I thanked her, hung up, and leaned back in my chair. This wasn't just a paper cut anymore. It was a blade, and I was about to make it count. I called a lawyer next. Not some billboard blowhard with a Bluetooth headset. A real employment attorney who used to clerk for labor court judges. She answered after 2 rings. "I read your clause," she said, 2 hours after I'd sent the documents. "Brenda, this is exquisite. Can it hold?" "Absolutely." She paused, then added with a tone that made my spine straighten, "Let's build the case." My attorney's name was Renee Dawes. She had the voice of a librarian and the kill rate of a courtroom sniper. She didn't wear power suits or give speeches. She wielded evidence like piano wire. Her office was in a converted firehouse. No receptionist, just a sign on the door that said, "Tell the truth. Bring receipts." I showed up with a manila folder fat enough to raise suspicion at airport security. Slack transcripts, severance spreadsheets, email chains with final adjustment subject lines, calendar invites that proved Damon signed off on every deduction. I even had a screen recording of the Zoom where he grinned and said, "We recouped half their severance." Budget optimization, folks. Idiot couldn't help himself. Renee sat across from me at a metal desk covered in sticky notes and a half-eaten apple. She flipped through the folder, silent, nodding occasionally. At one point, she let out a small exhale, almost a laugh, and tapped the clause I'd highlighted in the original charter. "Beautiful," she muttered. "You mean useful, right?" "No," she said, finally looking up. "I mean beautiful. This clause is like a landmine in a picnic, and your boy Damon is dancing barefoot." That was the moment I exhaled. Not in relief, just a shift, like something in my chest clicked into place. This wasn't a maybe. It wasn't a wild hope. It was real. It had legal weight. It had teeth. We got to work. Renee gave me a list. Every policy manual that referenced severance. All historical precedent. Any documented evidence of Damon's involvement in financial decisions tied to terminated staff. Every Slack message that hinted at motive. I had most of it already. 17 years in compliance doesn't just leave you with good instincts. It gives you a kind of sixth sense for what you'll need later when someone inevitably screws you over. Cataloged everything by timestamp. Cross-referenced messages with payout dates. Matched spreadsheet versions against email forwards. We found one internal memo from Damon to HR that simply read, "Make sure reallocation is in effect for all severance moving forward." Signed DK. That one got its own folder tab. We didn't rush. We built it slow, deliberate, like laying bricks around a campfire, knowing eventually someone's gonna fall in. Meanwhile, word kept trickling in from my former coworkers. Damon had stopped pretending. He was openly boasting about making budget by restructuring redundancies. There was even talk that he was trying to angle himself into a higher title, EVP or something equally hollow. I heard someone say he was pitching a speaking gig at a business conference about cost containment through HR flexibility. I almost choked on my tea. Some of my friends told me I should go public, post something online, leak it to a journalist, start a little righteous fire and roast him alive on LinkedIn. I didn't. I just smiled and said, let him relax first, because Damon was the kind of man who only made mistakes when he thought the game was already won. The more he preened, the more carelessly he signed things. Every puffed-up company-wide email, every interview he gave about modern leadership, every adjustment he tried to sneak through HR without protocol, that was another brick in the case Renee and I were building. Let him relax. Let him think he'd won. Let him write one more check with that smug fountain pen of his. Because when this hit court, it wouldn't be about noise. It'd be about paper, signatures, clauses, words he never read, and silence. Silence would be my witness. We filed the official breach claim 6 weeks later. The paperwork was sent by courier. Signature required. One envelope to Stratwell's legal team. One to the board's compliance chair. This was Renee's idea, hand-delivered to Damon's assistant, in an envelope so thick it looked like a phone book and so official it practically screamed, "Merry Christmas, asshole." Inside, the charter, the clause, a detailed timeline, and a spreadsheet that ended with one line in bold red. Unauthorized executive profit via severance reduction, $198,400. Damon's initials were on all but 2 rows. We didn't include a cover letter. We didn't need to. The courier confirmed delivery at 9:03 a.m. By 9:11, Damon had already forwarded the packet to Stratwell's legal with the subject line, "Absolute nonsense. Handle it." Classic Damon. Dismissive in public, probably pacing in private. That same morning, 3 people still inside the company told me he looked like someone had stolen his favorite mirror. But officially, his response was predictable. "It's a bluff," he said in an all-hands strategy call later that day. "These people don't have the resources to take this anywhere. We've retained legal support and we're moving forward like nothing happened." Retained legal support, my ass. He'd hired Cantrell, Moore and Dyer, a firm so aggressive they once sued their own mailroom for unionizing. They weren't cheap, which meant Damon was scared, no matter how loud he laughed. The first thing Cantrell's team did? File for early dismissal. Claimed the clause was outdated, ceremonial, and irrelevant in the post-IPO landscape. Said no reasonable executive could be expected to adhere to pre-public documents unless explicitly cited in the employee handbook. Also tried to frame the deductions as forward-looking budget corrections rather than retroactive severance tampering. That made Renee laugh so hard she had to mute herself during the Zoom. We responded with 32 pages of annotated contracts, screenshots of payroll systems still citing the original charter in their policy indexes, and 6 board meeting notes from the past 5 years where Section 23.7a was referenced as binding precedent. The judge denied the dismissal without even blinking. That was when the dam started to crack, not publicly, not yet. Internally, because legal didn't just reject the dismissal. The judge ordered a preliminary evidentiary hearing. That meant discovery. That meant we got access to emails, audit logs, and board correspondence. It meant Damon's bluff just turned into a legal minefield. The day after the dismissal ruling, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in months. Michelle, a former Stratwell board liaison turned nonprofit CFO. She didn't mince words. "Brenda, what the hell is Damon into?" I called her. She'd heard about the clause from another former exec. Word was trickling into board inboxes, quiet questions, concerned whispers. No one wanted to look like they'd been asleep at the wheel if this went nuclear. Especially not with Severance at stake. Damon's fingerprints smeared all over it like greasy BBQ sauce on white gloves. A week later, the whispers turned into phone calls. One director demanded a private briefing. Another emailed Renee directly asking for clarification of the clause's enforceability under the current charter. We knew then they were circling. Damon, meanwhile, kept strutting. Sent out a tone-deaf newsletter titled Operational Wins and Visionary Planning, where he used the word synergy 7 times in 4 paragraphs, and included a photo of himself shaking hands with a recycled cardboard cutout of a community partner he'd never met. His smile looked extra forced, his eyes a little more glassy than usual. You could feel it in the air, like the office itself had started inhaling slowly. Because here's the thing, corporate people don't like lawsuits, but what they really don't like is uncertainty. Damon was radioactive, and the ones who used to sip his Kool-Aid were now quietly researching ways to uninvite him to the next board meeting. One VP forwarded me a message Damon had sent after the claim hit. It read, "This is manageable. She's just pissed. There's no real breach. The clause is ceremonial legacy nonsense. We'll bury it with red tape." Attached to that message, a draft press statement calling the lawsuit a distraction. A distraction? I forwarded it to Renee. She replied 2 minutes later, "Excellent. Hubris is admissible." The hearing was set for 60 days out. 60 days for Damon to keep whistling in the dark. 60 days for us to open the floorboards and shine a flashlight on every nail he thought no one would notice. 60 days to let the pressure build so slow and steady it'd feel like nothing, until something snapped. And it would, because Damon thought money insulated him. Forgot the one thing people like him always forget. Paper cuts bleed too. The pretrial conference was held in a quiet courthouse conference room with cheap coffee, flickering fluorescents, and chairs that looked stolen from a defunct Holiday Inn. Nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just the quiet hum of inevitability. Damon walked in late, of course, brisk, chin up, leather binder under his arm like it contained divine secrets. He nodded at the judge, ignored me, and slid into his seat with the energy of a man still clinging to his own myth. The only thing missing was a marching band and a spotlight. I didn't look at him. Didn't need to. I was busy arranging my own binder. Mine was older, taped at the spine, and stuffed with real ammunition. Page-numbered evidence logs, time-stamped Slack threads, and 3 pristine, notarized copies of the original Stratwell Charter with the clause Damon had never bothered to read. He should have read it. His attorney, a man named Marshall DeWitt, was sharper than Damon deserved, impeccable suit, Yale chin, voice like butter melting over a threat. But even butter slides when the heat hits. Judge Tilson, a stern woman with steel gray hair and the patience of a stone gargoyle, called the session to order. This wasn't a trial. Not yet. Just a chance for both sides to show their hands, clarify procedural issues, and gauge whether this was heading to settlement or fire. Marshall stood and launched into the usual song and dance. Frivolous, symbolic, outdated clause, no demonstrable personal gain, dismissed before wasteful litigation. The greatest hits of a man who hadn't seen the evidence yet. Renee waited until he was done. Then, without standing, she slid our binder across the table toward the clerk. "This is the original Stratwell Charter," she said flatly. "Filed, ratified, and binding. Section 23.7a is not ceremonial, it's active. It's cited in the Internal Compliance Manual as of 18 months ago. The board never voted to amend or replace it. And here, she tapped a tab with a red sticker, is Mr. Kirk's digital signature authorizing severance modifications, which directly violated that clause." Marshall smirked. "I'm sure we can discuss the intent. The clause doesn't care about intent," Renee said, finally looking up. "Cares about authorization, which he never had." Judge Tilson turned to Damon. "Mr. Kirk, were you aware of Section 23.7a at the time you approved these reductions?" Damon scoffed. "Your Honor, that clause was from the company's founding. It predates our public transition. It's irrelevant." "That's not what I asked," the judge said. Damon blinked, adjusted his tie. "I know, I wasn't aware." Then came the moment that made the air change. Judge motioned to the defense table. "Let your associate read it out loud." The young guy sitting next to Marshall, probably 2 years out of law school, still bright-eyed and clean-jawed, took the charter, flipped to the tab, and started reading aloud. "No executive may personally or indirectly benefit from the modification of severance obligations without unanimous approval of the board of directors." His voice faltered by the 3rd line. By the 4th, he looked up. Pale. "Sir," he whispered to Marshall, "this is enforceable. I mean, this is airtight." Marshall's jaw tensed. Renee stayed perfectly still, so did I. It was one of those moments where no one moved, no one breathed, because something irreversible had just happened and everyone felt it, not loud, not theatrical, just shifted. Damon leaned forward, whispering furiously into Marshall's ear, waving one hand like he could swat the clause out of existence. But Marshall didn't respond. He was staring at the red tab, lips pressed so tight they disappeared. Judge Tilson cleared her throat. Motion for delay? Marshall hesitated. Yes, Your Honor. We'd like time to reevaluate our position. Renee stood. We object. This has been filed, reviewed, and logged for weeks. Opposing counsel had ample time to prepare. Any delay would materially impact my client and the other affected parties. The judge nodded. Objection noted. Motion denied. This proceeds on schedule. She banged her gavel once, gently, and just like that, the room deflated. Damon stood, fists clenched, face flushed a dangerous shade of red. He didn't look at me, couldn't. The kid associate just kept staring at the claws like it was some ancient curse that had just come alive. Outside, as I walked down the courthouse steps into the sun, Renee turned to me and smiled for the first time in 2 months. You feel that? What? She put on her sunglasses. The tables just tilted, and they weren't tilting in Damon's favor. Courtrooms don't echo the way movies make them out to. They compress. Every sound gets folded inward, heavy and private. When someone shifts in their chair, you feel it more than hear it. So when Judge Tilson entered the chamber that morning with a manila folder under her arm and no clerk behind her, you could already sense something different was about to unfold. She didn't open with pleasantries. No welcome. No thank you for your time. She walked straight to the bench, sat down, opened the folder, and pulled out a worn document with a red paperclip on the corner. I knew that document. I touched it with my own hands. She held it up and looked directly at the room. Before we proceed, she said, I'd like to read into record a clause from Stratwell Systems' original charter, submitted by the plaintiff and verified as binding by the defendant's own compliance audit. Renee didn't flinch. Marshall didn't blink. Damon gave a soft laugh, almost a scoff. The judge began. Section 23.7a. In the event of restructuring, no executive may personally or indirectly benefit from any modification to severance obligations without the unanimous consent of the board of directors. Such consent must be documented in writing, available upon request and referenced in quarterly compliance filings. She looked up. The room stayed frozen. Damon smiled like he thought she was done, then looked over at Marshall as if to say this again, but she wasn't done. She turned the page and continued. Any violation of this clause constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty, enforceable by civil action. Willful disregard shall constitute grounds for removal pending internal board review, regardless of standing title or tenure. Damon's smile faltered. The color drained from his face like a leak in a luxury car. Marshall shifted for the first time. Just a quick, sharp inhale, barely audible. The judge placed the document face up on the bench. Then she looked straight at Damon, no expression. Mr. Kirk, she said evenly, did you knowingly violate this clause? Damon opened his mouth, closed it. He glanced at Marshall, who didn't move. I didn't know about the clause, Damon said. It wasn't flagged during our transition after the IPO. You didn't answer the question. Damon blinked. I wasn't aware that it was still active. Let me rephrase, Judge Tilson said, voice sharp now. Did you authorize severance modifications in writing without board approval while standing to gain from the budget surplus created? He opened his mouth again, then stalled, searching for life raft. This is being blown way out of proportion, he said. I was executing a strategic fiscal review. That's not a no, the judge said. She turned to Renee. Do you have a copy of the severance spreadsheets mentioned in your original filing? Renee stood, calm as a glacier. Yes, Your Honor, with Damon Kirk's initials in the approval column. We also have Slack logs where he confirms the policy shift and refers to the savings as extra room for executive performance incentives. Marshall broke his silence. Objection, contextual phrasing, sit down, the judge said. Marshall sat. Damon was visibly sweating now. He leaned forward like he wanted to stand and then realized there was nowhere to go. The judge continued, we are now beyond preliminary posture. Evidence of breach is evident and credible. This court intends to proceed with a full evidentiary review under civil fiduciary statutes. Any attempt to settle must now go through formal channels. That was it. No gavel, no shouting. Just the sound of the floor dropping out beneath Damon Kirk's meticulously polished shoes. He didn't say a word as the judge exited, just sat there, red in the face, white around the mouth. Hands trembling slightly, one clenched on the table, the other slowly closing over the armrest like he needed something to anchor him. And for the first time since he'd stepped into Stratwell with his flashy title and empty promises, Damon Kirk looked exactly like what he was, cornered. Renee leaned over to me and whispered, you see that? What? He just realized this isn't about optics anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't need to because the silence was doing all the work now. And for once, he was the one being watched. By the time the afternoon session started, courtroom air had shifted from tension to thick, silent heat, not the sweaty kind. The kind you feel just before a storm rolls in, static crawling up your spine. Damon sat stiffly beside Marshall, no longer adjusting his tie or smoothing invisible wrinkles. His water glass was full, untouched. His smile was gone. Judge Tilson entered again with the same no-nonsense stride, no flair, no delay. She sat, glanced at her notes, then lifted the charter once more, not to read, but to hold it like a warning. We'll now address executive knowledge and authorization, she said flatly. Defense, please confirm. Was Mr. Kirk presented with this charter during his onboarding process? Marshall didn't answer right away. Instead, he did something I hadn't expected. He removed his glasses and turned slowly to face Damon. "Damon," he said, his voice lower now, no courtroom thunder, just quiet pressure. "You approved this charter, correct?" The room could have snapped in half with the silence that followed. Damon flinched, just barely. His lips parted, but nothing came out. He glanced at me, actually looked at me for the first time since this started, and there it was in his eyes, not anger, not even shame, just panic, cornered animal stuff. I don't remember," he said weakly. "There were a lot of documents." Marshall didn't blink. "But your signature is on the acknowledgement form, is it not?" Damon didn't answer. "Let the record show," Marshall said carefully, "that the executive acknowledgement file submitted during discovery includes Mr. Kirk's e-signature, date-stamped, affirming receipt and review of the original Stratwell Charter, including Appendix C governance clauses." He didn't sound angry. He sounded resigned. Judge Tilson nodded, scribbled something. Then she turned her attention back to Damon. "Mr. Kirk," she said, eyes sharp now, "was your personal performance bonus, or any incentive structure tied to budget targets, directly or indirectly impacted by the cost savings created from the reduced severance packages?" Damon blinked fast. I wouldn't say directly yes or no." He swallowed hard. "Yes, there it was, the needle, in the vein." My heart didn't race. I didn't feel triumphant or giddy. Just still. Steady. Renee, on the other hand, chose that exact moment to reach into her folder and slide a new exhibit across the table toward the judge. A color-coded spreadsheet, annotated, time-stamped, printed on ivory paper like an obituary. "Your Honor," she said calmly, "this document tracks every severance agreement processed under Mr. Kirk's approval during the affected restructuring window. As you can see, each document contains either his full signature or, at minimum, the DK authorization stamp approved by Stratwell's own internal e-signature system." She flipped to the second page. "This column," she said, tapping twice, "tracks the corresponding reduction amounts. This column tracks the internal budget projections. And this final column, highlighted here, matches each reduction against Mr. Kirk's personal quarterly performance bonus calculation as submitted to payroll. The delta from the adjusted severance directly contributed to his bonus payout, exceeding the original threshold by exactly $21,300. Marshall exhaled slowly and placed both hands on the table. Damon just stared at the spreadsheet like it might burst into flames and save him. The judge leaned back slightly, eyes narrowing. She didn't ask another question. She just watched him, and that was worse. Because silence from a judge doesn't mean she's done thinking. It means the walls are closing in. Finally, Tilson spoke again. "This court will enter into record the evidence of direct financial benefit tied to unauthorized severance reductions. Additional financial discovery will proceed immediately, and the court will also prepare instructions for potential punitive review." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Renee slid the binder shut with a soft thud. Sound I'll hear in my sleep for years. Not dramatic, not cruel, just final. Damon was sweating through his collar now. I could see a faint mark spreading across his chest. His posture collapsed slightly like a tent whose pole had just been yanked out. His lawyer didn't look at him again. As we gathered our papers, Renee turned to me and said, under her breath, "That's the sound of a man realizing the money wasn't worth it." She wasn't wrong. Could spend a decade pretending to be untouchable. But it only takes one clause, one signature, one spreadsheet, one woman who never deleted the original file, to knock the crown off your head without ever raising her voice. And I hadn't even played my final card yet. The judgment came on a Thursday morning, gray and cold, like the sky itself wanted to keep things quiet. No press. No grand finale music. Just the hard, polished truth read out loud into the silence of that courtroom, like a funeral eulogy for Damon Kirk's career. Judge Tilson delivered the ruling with the same calm she'd kept from the beginning. No gavel theatrics, just words. "This court finds that Damon Kirk did knowingly breach his fiduciary duty as a corporate officer of Stratwell Systems," she said, her voice even, surgical. "Furthermore, the court finds evidence of concealed financial conflict in violation of Section 23.7a of the Stratwell Founding Charter." She turned a page. The paper rustled like thunder. "As such, the severance packages previously altered under Mr. Kirk's authorization are to be reinstated in full, with a 10% penalty applied for each affected employee." She looked up, right at him. "The total financial damages awarded to the plaintiffs, including penalties, amount to $344,800. No one moved. Damon didn't flinch, didn't cry. He just stared at the floor like if he looked hard enough, maybe it would open up and swallow him whole. Marshall had already packed his briefcase, quiet and efficient like a man used to walking away from wreckage. Judge Tilson wasn't done. "Based on the findings submitted to the court, this ruling will be referred to Stratwell's Board of Directors for internal governance review. Pending that review, Mr. Kirk is to be removed from all operational and leadership roles immediately." She paused, not dramatically, just with weight. "This hearing is concluded, that was it. No fireworks, no outbursts, just the final brick sealing the tomb." We stood. Renee shook my hand, no smile, just a firm squeeze. Her eyes said everything, "You did it. Quietly, perfectly." Damon shuffled out the side exit, flanked by two corporate attorneys who looked more like accountants than defenders. No security escort, no walk of shame, just a man with no more lies left to hold him up. I didn't watch him go. I walked out the main doors into the biting cold, coat zipped high, scarf tight around my throat. Stratwell HQ was only 3 blocks away. I didn't need to go there, but something pulled me in that direction. Muscle memory. Maybe I just wanted to see it one more time where it all started. Where I'd kept my head down, filed my papers, saved the charter. The building hadn't changed, still gray and glass, pretending to be more important than it was. But I wasn't walking through those doors anymore. I was walking past them. My phone buzzed as I crossed the street. First, a text from Jordan, got the email. Severance reinstated. They even apologized. Brenda, the hell did you do? Then another ping. A recruiter from a competitor. We heard what happened. Any chance you're open to chatting about a director role? Then finally one from Renee, claws held, it's over. I stopped on the corner, looked up at the Stratwell logo etched into the stone above the entryway, and realized for the first time in years I felt clean. Not vindictive, not smug, just finished. They had underestimated me, dismissed me, called me replaceable. And I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to tweet. I didn't even need to raise my voice. All I needed was the truth, and a clause they forgot to read. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.